We have a very important question here from a new subscriber saying that the recent volatility in markets have been really very choppy and has been very challenging for them to navigate. And they're asking whether we have any tips for how they can get more focused, and how they can navigate these environments better. And I want to thank you for this question because I think it's a really important one, and a very important point to discuss. And not only for uncertain environments like we are in now, but also just as a general guide on how we should approach the markets. You see, in our day-to-day lives, we are so often accustomed to the let's call it certainty. We are exposed to certainty everywhere we look. A simple example is being certain that the sun will rise tomorrow. You're sure it will happen, right? You've grown accustomed to the sun rising every single day, so it's not like you go to sleep at night, and you wonder, I wonder if the sun will rise tomorrow. You just know it will. It's become a certainty in your life. And if we do some introspection, we'll find all sorts of things that we just take as certainties in our lives. Now, being human, we often try to take these certainties and bring them into other parts of our lives as well. For example, if my car has started for the last 1,000 times that I've driven it, I'm not going to wonder whether it will start tomorrow if I get inside. I'm just literally going to get inside my car, turn the key, and I'm expecting it to start. It's not like it's this uncertain, I wonder what's going to happen when I get inside my car. Now, this way of thinking can actually be very difficult in trading. You see, we've grown so accustomed to that certainty that we try to force that certainty into the financial markets. This is where you'll often hear traders or analysts say things like, the markets will do this or it will do that, or saying things like, if this happens, then this instrument will do this or it will do that. The problem, of course, with having this type of certainty is that the markets cannot be boxed in like that, ever. We need to always be humble enough to realize that we actually don't know what will happen in the next second, with any type of certainty when it comes to the financial markets. And most traders, what they often do is they'll fall in love with a specific trade idea or their own analysis or their own expectation of what will happen or should happen. They become so sure of their analysis and their bias that they choose to ignore anything that contradicts that idea. And this is such a dangerous place for traders to be in. You see, when we get so certain of any trade that you start discounting valid reasons why that idea might not work, we're falling into the trap of confirmation bias. We've fallen so in love with that trade that even when a valid reason stares us in the face not to take the trade or basically to close the trade, we simply discount it because we know we are right. It makes me think of a famous quote by Mark Twain. They also used it in the movie The Big Short. For those of you that hasn't watched it yet, I would highly recommend it. The quote goes something like, it's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble, but what you think you know for sure that just isn't so, right? So as traders, we need to be able to approach the market with a very impartial bias, or maybe better put, with a disinterested bias. So, yes, we do our analysis and we determine that based on all the available information that this is the highest probability outcome. But we always make room and allowance to be wrong. It means that when we're in a trade, we have confidence in the trade, yes, due to the probability, due to the analysis, but we must always be prepared to change our mind in an instant and be able to reverse the trade in a moment's notice. We need to be nimble. Because in trading, it's not about being right. When we try to prove to ourselves or to others that we were right, we're going to get into trouble. The market doesn't care whether we think we're right or whether we are right. The market doesn't care about any of that. And for that reason, we always need to be prepared that the market can instantly change its mind, and we need to be able to do the same. So, whether that is a strong risk on tone that suddenly changes to a risk off tone without any catalyst, or whether that is something that is supposed to be hawkish or dovish that is traded in the exact opposite way for no apparent reason, it doesn't really matter what the scenario is. What matters is that we are always prepared to have our minds changed, or our bias changed, or our position changed when the market changes. That doesn't mean that we're going to be like popcorn in the microwave, just jumping from left to right. We still maintain confidence in our trades when we have done the analysis, we've done the work, we have that higher probability of being of being right. I don't actually want to use that word being right, but we have a high probability of the trade, working out. We should always remember not to fall in love with that bias. And you see traders, um, like most people, we always expect people not to disappoint us, right? And if we have that expectation on people, then we are going to be bound to be very disappointed because people will always disappoint that. And just like people, the market will always disappoint us and not live up to the very high expectations that we have set for the market. Not moving in the way that we expected to, or not moving in the way that we hoped it would. So that's why, first and foremost, we're not really traders. We actually risk managers first and foremost. We do our research, we develop a bias, and we trade it accordingly. But we never try and bring certainty into that equation. We always leave room for the associated risks. Yes, we have an upside bias for this instrument based on ABC, but there will always be downside risks to that upside bias. Um, it makes me think of another quote by Rudyard Kipling that says, "If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too." So yes, trust your own judgment, trust your analysis, trust that trade, but always leave room for the uncertainty that is in the market and leave room for what other people think about the trade. So you might have this strong downside bias, but you might be reading an article where somebody has a very good point on why this thing might actually be going up and not going down. We need to have an open mind to always be able to incorporate that into our own bias, and not just focusing on what should happen and this is the way it should be. The market just doesn't respond that way. So that was a little bit of a tangent on that subject, but I do hope that it helps. And of course, as always, if there's any other questions, don't hesitate to let us know.